Lena, over to you. Please unmute and come on the video.
Respected Tanka Ma'am, President Annie, and all executives and members of Annie join this virtual meeting. May God bless us all and lead us throughout this event. This November 21, Empower Hour is taken up by Puducherry chapter on clinical reasoning through case studies. Myself, Dr. Janshankri, representing the Puducherry chapter. Now, may I ask Mrs. Leena Ma'am, President TN chapter, to welcome the group gathered in the virtual meeting. Ma'am, please.
Warm good morning to each and everyone who is gathered here for this webinar. I'm glad on behalf of the Tamil Nadu Puducherry chapter to invite each of you for this webinar. Before we move on to the scientific session, I hand over the stage to the President of ANEI, Mrs. Thankam Gomez ma'am, so that she felicitates one of our nurses for his brave act. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you for all of you being here. A very warm welcome to yet another Empower Hour. And today's Empower Hour is very special because we have someone very special here to felicitate and congratulate and to celebrate. May I invite Bhuvaneshwaran D. Can you come on the camera, please, Bhuvaneshwaran?
Ma'am, I am on camera only, ma'am.
Okay. Now I can see you. Great. So all of you, you can see that he is actually behind Miss Juliet Varghese. And so hi, Juliet.
Hi, ma'am.
So Bhuvan, I'm going to call you Bhuvan. I will not call you Bhuvaneshwaran. Okay, I'm so delighted to have you here. And many of us sitting here, probably they are aware why you are here. Okay. We all are nurses and we all are trained to attend emergencies, and we do take care of emergencies in the hospital. That's no big deal. That is our job, right? But you are here because you have actually shown the courage to do something outside the hospital premises, and that also in a moving bus. We would really love to hear from you that what happened on that day with the date and time, and just tell us that what happened.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, on the day I am on second shift, that is afternoon shift. Okay, and that days were a heavy rain in Tamil Nadu, and everyone were aware of that. And Tamil Nadu government has also said red alert in Chennai. Okay, after my shifts over at around 8:15 p.m., I went to the cab stand, the place where the Apollo buses will pick up the staffs, and I went there. And I usually go in that cab only from Apollo Hospital to Central Railway Station, that is Chennai Central Railway Station. From railway station to I will go to my home in the train itself, ma'am. On the day, everything was normal only. Due to the heavy rain, many staffs were not there. Thank God for that. Only 5 members were there, including the driver. Okay, the driver and the 3 other staffs, but not the medical professionals. I am only the one working in the medical professionals. The cab was moved within 2 minutes. Suddenly, the driver was lied on the engine. Suddenly, with making a huge noise, like a struck the noise. I was sitting behind 2 seats behind the driver, and I seen what happened, and I suddenly realized his eyes were upright, and he was like so stiff. I realized that it is a seizure. But suddenly, I went and sit on the driver's lap itself and hold the steering in my left hand, and I tried to put the clutch. Then I off the bus engine. Okay. Then I called the help from the another 3 members who were there in the cab along with me. two brothers and one sister. Actually, I don't know about their names and all, but they really helped me. I called the brothers, come on, we will lift the driver from his seat. The bus was in the center of the road. It was in the cross. Okay, heavy traffic within a minute. Heavy traffic was there, but no one knows what actually happened inside the bus. All were shouting, "What happened? They move the bus," like that. They were shouting, but no one knows what actually happened inside. And we tried and we pulled out the driver from the driver's seat. And due to the heavy rain, I cannot shift the driver to the outside to the road. So inside the cab itself, I placed the driver in a supine position itself. Within that period itself, the driver has bitten his tongue. While lifting himself, he has bitten his tongue. So then I tried to make him alert. And the driver name is Mr. Murugan. I see his name in his ID card itself, ma'am. Brother, don't worry, nothing has happened. I made him alert, but he's unconscious only. Then I just checked for the pulse. Pulse was there, but no respiration. He was struggling. The seizure was going on, it seems. Then I tried to give the airway management, but his mouth full of secretions along with blood clots and all, because he has bitten his tongue, it seems. Then I tried to tilt his head towards the left side, but in that bus there is small space only, ma'am. But I cannot able to turn him to remove the secretions. The only thing I did is I just given chest massage to make him slight pain so that he may cough. I thought of that and I rubbed on his chest. Don't worry, nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. Suddenly, thank God, he has coughed. All the secretions will come out. Then I made the head tilt position, which give him a good respiration. Without doing, if I did means the secretions will enter into the respiratory region and he may have respiratory issues. Okay. Then I said one sister is there, no ma'am, in my camp. I asked, sister, can you please give me the water bottle? Before that, I intimated one brother to call the Apollo ambulance, because nearby hospital is our Apollo hospital only, ma'am. I called, I seek the help from that brother, and suddenly he called the Apollo ambulance. Within that, and I seek the help from that sister. Give me the water bottle. Then I sprinkled some water in his face. Brother, don't worry. You are normal only. Nothing was happened for you. But he was not oriented to that environment. Then there was heavy traffic in that road. Then I itself started the Apollo that cab, and I put the indicator and I parked the bus safely on the left side of the road, ma'am. Within that period, the Apollo ambulance arrived, and we have shifted that driver into the Apollo ambulance, and he was admitted in the emergency department, and now he is fine, ma'am.
Great. That's a very motivating, inspiring story. So, let me ask you something that, not everybody gets that courage in a public place to do something, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, what motivated you? What gave you that courage? Were you afraid, when you saw that, I have to now step in? And it was not a very simple seizure from what you have explained. The patient had probably a slightly longer seizure with biting of the tongue and, of course, some secretions in the mouth. So, must have been a little frightening for sure. So,
Yeah.
what gave you that courage?
To be honest, I just joined the Apollo hospitals. I'm in six months old only, ma'am. Okay, 6 month experience only I'm having. The regular coaching, the regular classes which the Apollo Institute were giving to me. Yes, that is the one, ma'am. And I have posted in heart and lung transplant ICU, ma'am. Or for a week they will take daily. They will take each sessions regarding heart attack, everything. And Juliet ma'am also taking many sessions, ma'am. And we know in an emergency situation how we have to handle the patients inside the hospital. I know, ma'am. As you asked, what courage you are outside the hospital? The only thing is the regular classes and everything what the Apollo hospitals given me only, ma'am. Yes, that is the only thing, ma'am.
Okay. Where did you do your nursing?
Sorry, ma'am.
Where did you complete your nursing education?
I completed my nursing at Savita College of Nursing, Savita University, ma'am, Chennai.
Okay, Chennai.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Your university can also take pride in you for what
Yes,
you have
ma'am.
shown in the 6 months. And not every nurse who get trained will exhibit the courage and return on learning the way that you have demonstrated, right? So that's a great story, inspiring, motivating story. And thank you for being a role model, because that's why we brought you here to share this, courageous story, to tell everyone that when we are nurses, wherever we are, if we have a little presence of mind, we can apply what we learned, and we must apply what we have learned. So you told a lot about the training of Apollo, which has helped you to step up and help in an emergency. So let me just take a bite from your boss, Miss Juliet Varghese.
Sure, ma'am.
Juliet, are you there?
Yes, yes,
So, as his boss, and he's a relatively fresh nurse, just 6 months into profession. So, what do you feel? What do you feel, and what's the message to all the other nurses, old and young, sitting here?
First of all, namaste and a very, very good morning to all of you all. My first thanks goes out to our dear Usha ma'am, the one who put this on a national forum. International, I would say it's gone, because ANEI has many members who are outside the country. So it is to Usha ma'am, who has celebrated presence of mind. I don't think she wanted to just showcase Apollo. It was basic presence of mind in saving people. That's what ma'am wanted to do. And it's really, really great. And thank you, Tangam ma'am, for, taking that one step ahead and, really celebrating success like no one has done. Of course, the media has done and everybody has done, but the nursing fraternity has done it in such a big way. And I'm so, so happy. As far as Bhuvaneshwaran is concerned, he has been a part of our critical care pool, what we talk about, and he has been trained in a very, very different way to handle heart and lung patients. Having said that, the training that has come from the Savita College of Nursing, the university where he has studied, that's a very, very reputed college, bringing out very good students. And we have a lot of ex-Savita students over here working with us, and they are very good nurses. So Savita is churning out a lot of good nurses. So that's a big, big applause for their college. And the second thing is, as far as he's concerned, even as he was, talking about the experience, it was like giving us goosebumps. How can, I'm just wondering, if I was in that place, would I do it? So it's basic human nature to help another person in need, although many walk away. So he happened to be the Good Samaritan on that particular day. And it helped out for the family, because the driver's wife is also one of our secretaries at the hospital. So, it would have, really this family would have had such a tough time if something wrong had happened. So as his boss and in the training, we have a very robust training program which has been put in place, very much followed up from the center by Usha ma'am. The thing is that we have the induction that takes place, which is standardized across the group. So every nurse, whether you are at Chennai or at Delhi or Mumbai, wherever it is, they go through the same training process, covering all critical aspects in the induction, and then the core competency build-up is there. As far as he was concerned, he belonged to the critical care, so there was a lot of training. So the fact that he was saying that I train and things like that, I'm basically more so not into the clinical aspect, but more on why they should be trained in the way that they are and how different they are. And I'm happy that that presence of mind was there to connect what he required to do, his knowledge, his skill. And in that situation, he could put all of these things together, and like God just worked so well in that scenario. Everything just came together for good for that particular, all those 5 members in that cab. Otherwise, we would be sitting on a very different table today, all of us at Apollo. So I'm so happy that this thing happened, and to applaud not only what we give out, but I have to say from his side that he was able to assimilate. I remember him very, very well as being one of our extremely good students in the pool. And, I'm happy that he was able to showcase that whole thing. So I feel very, very proud. And I know Usha ma'am is extremely proud, because if she had to bring it up to ANEI, she's even more proud than me. So and you know, belonging to the nursing team, when I look at you, ma'am, I feel even that you're so happy. This is what they call it, Generation Z, that's coming up. So nursing is in good hands. So I'm so happy about that.
Thank you, Juliet. And when you can see that how happy all the senior members of the fraternity is, and Association of Nurse Executives India stands for celebrating nurses and nursing, and we do not delay in recognizing people. And we are very happy that we are in November 2021, and this year we were able to celebrate three nurses, starting with the ANM in the beginning of the year. Then we had Mr. Jayakumar, and then we have Mr. Bhuvan. And incidentally, the last two are both from Tamil Nadu. So I think special, kudos to the chapter and the state, I would say. I don't know, is there something special? Very early to comment on that. But then thank you. And Bhuvan, the other fact is that you also remembered to stop the bus.
Yes, ma'am.
Park the bus on the side. It's also, there is many other life skills. Apart from the emergency care of a patient with seizure, you had presence of mind to handle a bus. So knowing driving is something good, I guess, so that you really saved one life and many other lives. Thank you so much. And I can see Captain Dr. Usha Banerjee here. So before we wrap up, and we are almost there, I have 15 minutes. So I will take a quick bite from Usha, that she must be extremely proud that, her, I would always say my child, my son, something like that. But someone used to say, don't call them your children and your dear ones, they are your staff. I said, yeah, I know where to pull the line, Okay, Usha, over to you. What do you think?
Hi, Tangam, and hi, Miss Juliet and Bhuvan and everybody else. I think it's a moment for all of us to celebrate. Every single nurse who comes into action to save lives becomes a national hero for us. And I, for one, know that Annie, and led by Ms. Tangam, who is our president, and the executive committee always celebrates such heroic deeds. So we have a great platform. So I'm sure there'll be many, many more nurses who come up with such stories. But on this particular incident, while my compliments go to Bhuvan for his presence of mind and his clinical skills, he's a young nurse, and I know he'll do so much more. He comes as a good human and a good Samaritan. But I take immense pride in Miss Juliet escalating and writing a beautiful story. What went on in WhatsApp, I think, touched every one of us, because she wrote it beautifully and she put it up on time. And that's what great leaders do, showcase their people. And we all know we are members of the Apollo family, and Apollo is a beacon of hope. And it is a testament and a legacy. And this comes from our chairman. So I'm glad that this is a great story. We are here to celebrate the learnings we take from Apollo, because we do a lot of work, and I think Juliet has elaborated that. So for me, Tangam, I wish many more nurses get recognized, and you go up front to do this. And I'm glad we belong to Annie, and we will continue to celebrate lives. We are in the business of life. We are in the business of emotions, and we are more than happy that the next gen comes up with great recognition. So thank you to Annie, thank you to Tangam, thank you to the team. Thanks to Juliet, who is always showcasing people, and she is also holding the mantle of our flagship hospital, which is Apollo Chennai. It is the first best hospital in the country. So thanks to your principal, your teachers, to all of them, Bhuvan, you must take this as a gratitude, and you should feel this lapel and this mantle that you got today should help you build your career, and you should be able to touch many more lives. So God bless all of us.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet.
Thank you, Usha. Thank you very much. And without taking much more time, Once again, congratulations to the Savita University, Apollo Chennai and Group Apollo. And my only call out to all the senior nurses here is let's not delay in celebrating our nurses. This is very, very important. And that's the most important takeaway for us, that maybe we don't appreciate and celebrate maybe enough, but Annie is a platform. Please let us know. We will ensure that they get a platform and they are able to, motivate many more. So before I sign off from this particular segment, Bhuvaneshwar, you are being inducted into Annie as a, member, and I'll be sending this certificate to you, and plus your membership card will also come to you because I'm just showcasing that here. So you will be inducted as an Annie member. So that is our small gesture for what you have done, and God bless you, and take care, and stay safe, and let's save more lives. And thank you so much, Bhuvaneshwar.
Sure,
God
ma'am.
bless you and take
Thank you
care.
so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Juliet.
you. Ma'am.
Thanks, Susha. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Now
Thank you.
over to our Puducherry team to continue with the Empower Hour. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Lena, please take over. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and thanks to Bhuvaneshwar who joined us, and thanks for showcasing his brave act. Congratulations and many more achievements to come, Bhuvaneshwar. Over to Jay Shankari. Over to Jay Shankari, please.
Yes, ma'am. We are really proud of Mr. Bhuvaneshwaran for his brave deeds. Once again, we congratulate you, Mr.
May I
Bhuvaneshwaran.
request all the speakers to be always on the video, please? We are live streaming, so we don't want to have a blank screen for the audience, right? The speakers should always be on the video. Thank you.
The
Jay
host
Shankari,
has,
come on the video. You're not on the
ma'am,
video.
yeah, the host has stopped
Not stopped any.
the video.
You are there.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Once again, we congratulate you, Mr. Bhuvaneshwaran. You will be really an inspiration for all the nurses. Please contribute and continue your deeds. Now, without much delay, let's start the plenary session. We have with us today an eminent leader and icon of nursing, the founder of Puducherry chapter, Dr. Rebecca Sampson, Director of Nursing and Research, Arpadavidi Medical College Hospital and Puducherry, to lead us and moderate the panel discussion. Of course, she is having 5 decades of experience in nursing practice and research, organized a number of renowned conferences, national and international levels, 50 plus scientific research paper presentations in various peer-reviewed journals, Florence Nightingale Award, a best citizen, and so more. Now, may I request straight away and hand over the panel discussion to Dr. Rebecca Sampson, Director of Nursing Research and Nursing, to introduce the speakers and moderate the session. Madam, please.
Thank you, Jay Shankari, for the opportunity, and I thank the Annie, especially Dr. Thangam and her team, and congratulations to Bhuvaneshwaran. And we are proud as nurses. God bless you, Bhuvan. Now coming to the sessions, we are proud to share this session on clinical research. And the best example is Bhuvan this morning. Good introduction. So my job is made easy to introduce the team. So welcome you all. Next. Please keep sharing. Next slide, please. So clinical reasoning, as we said, everyone said the presence of mind, definitely it is essential. Conceiving what, when you see something, and then judging what is going on and reasoning what to do and why this happened. So this is so is called clinical reasoning, which is essential for safe and effective patient care. Next. So by definition, it is a process of applying knowledge and expertise to a clinical situation to develop a solution. Again, I'm referring to Bhuvan, the process of applying knowledge. Many times he repeated the training that he undertook and the skills that he learned in handling the situation. Next. So the three important elements in clinical reasoning are, one is scientific knowledge based, which is sound knowledge one should possess, and one should have moral and values in implementing the care, and also the refined skills, artistic way. Immediately, the best example, again, I can say Bhuvan's story that he narrated, how he handled. So he applied all these three, the scientific knowledge he possessed, the values, moral values as a human being, and also he used his skills. Next. And it is the process. Nurses observe the patient's status. The driver was almost collapsing. He observed the status and he processed the information, what he saw the patient, and also come to an understanding of the patient problem, what is going on, and plan and implement the intervention immediately with the presence of mind. Then evaluate the outcome and reflect on what we learn from the process. That is, now we learned from this process that the driver's family and everyone was happy and appreciable, and he saved their lives. Next, please. The components of clinical reasoning, as we all understood now, it's a cognition, metacognitive process. It is the presence of mind comes from the intellectual process, setting priorities, what to do first, what to do next, developing the rational. That's why we have to do this, right? Scientific rational, learning how to act, then clinical reasoning in transition time, and reporting, responding to changes in the client's condition, then reflect on what happened, or what is the outcome of the results. Next. So to conclude, the clinical reasoning explores the following areas, like why things have happened, what are the causes, when did it happen, where did it happen, who got affected, and how to do. So these are the areas one should explore for clinical reasoning. Next. And finally, to conclude, the clinical reasoning helps. It is followed with the critical thinking. And once you critically think, then you know what decisions to make. So this goes hand in hand. Okay, thank you. And I'm happy to introduce this theme for this morning. And it was my interest from the beginning that this is the 11th episode that we have come into, and clinical reasoning is my favorite. So I opted this topic for presenting in the month of November. Thank you, Dr. Thangam and the team for giving us this opportunity. Now I'm happy to introduce the panel members who are going to share the case scenarios and through which we understand why clinical reasoning is important, what goes right, what goes wrong when we don't follow do's and don'ts. Next slide, please. I have 3 speakers to introduce. Kingsley. The first speaker is Mr. Kingsley. He is a NABH coordinator from Mahatma Gandhi University Hospital. Okay, and he worked for Nursing Excellence. So we are proud to have Kingsley, and he'll be sharing with you few clinical scenarios on adult patient care. Over to Kingsley. Kingsley, can you share your thoughts?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your introductions, and thanks to Annie for giving this wonderful opportunity. So we'll begin with my presentation. So we'll start with the presentation about what is patient safety. So patient safety is a very fundamental to delivering a quality essential healthcare services. And the quality healthcare services across the world should be effective, safe, and it should be people-centered. And it to realize the benefits of quality healthcare, so healthcare services must be timely, equitable, integrated, and efficient. And about the incidents, about 134 million adverse events occur due to unsafe and uncare, resulting into 2.6 million deaths. And globally, 4 in 10 patients are harmed in primary and outpatient healthcare. So we'll go on to the case scenario first. So patient name Mr. X was brought to casualty on 14/11/2021 at 11 p.m. with complaints of severe abdominal pain, vomiting, and not passed stools for past 2 days. On examinations, patient had tachycardia and tachypnea, hypotension, restlessness, and abdominal distension. And even the rectal examination was also done by the doctors. So following it, the baseline investigation was sent and secured IV cannulations by the nurse and started IV fluids as per the doctor's order. And patient was kept in MPO and CT abdomen was asked for. And the patient was transferred to the ward within 30 minutes of being in ER. And however, after the CT was conditions, the patient conditions deteriorated in the ward. So later the patient was developed an intestinal obstructions. So we'll see what went wrong here in this scenario and what went well in this scenario. So first we look into the what went well here. So the history collections and initial assessment was done within a stipulated time of 10 to 15 minutes. And nurse has been, patient was on IV fluids and the clinical examination was also done. And the patient was kept in NPO till the further orders. And the patient shifted for CT scan on time and the blood samples sent to lab, and by the time the patients was in the active interventions. So what went wrong here? So stomach decompressions would have been helped. Actually, the stomach decompressions was not done on that particular time. And the deviant CT report was not informed immediately by the to the nurse. And the nurse also did not follow up the CT report. And the nurse should have followed up the report and not wait for the radiology to inform. So even before the patient deteriorated, we could have been prepared him for the surgical intervention. So we'll move on to the next case scenario. So here the patient X was a 19 years old female admitted in a female medical ward on 11/11/2021 at 9 p.m. with a fracture femur, fever, fatigue, and shortness of breath. So nurse secured IV cannulation, the left antecubital fossa. They administered the first dose of injection clox and injection paracetamol, and the whole blood was connected to treat his low HB. So a few minutes later, the nurse noticed that the blood bag, few minutes later, the nurse noticed that the blood bag has changed color to bright red and the blood ascending rather than descending. So with this, the line was actually in the artery and not in the vein. So IV line was removed and the duty doctor was informed, and the arm was raised on a pillow for the edema. And the patient subsequently developed numbness and cool periphery, which gradually worsened, and the patient developed gangrene and set in the next day and after 8 hours. So in this scenario, we'll see what went good first. So immediately the blood was stopped and assessment was done by the nurses, and the line was removed immediately because the line was actually in the artery line and not in the vein. And the doctor was called for help, and all happenings explained to the doctor, and the reassessment and documentation was also done. And another IV line was started for antibiotics and blood transfusions to ensure treatment continues. So what went wrong here? So the nurse had gone deep while starting into a peripheral line, and the cannula was into the artery. So the line was being occluded in order to prevent blood seeping out, which led to not identifying that cannula was in the artery. And the flushing of the line was adequately to see free flow was missed actually, and instead the injection cloxacillin was administered. So monitoring continued, but nothing was done for numbness, cold periphery, and mild color changes of the fingers. An expert opinion should have been sought at midnight. The injection clots blocked the end capillaries, and the drug was given in the artery, so resulting in stopping of blood flow, and it's developed gangrene. So we'll move on to the next case scenario. So patient Mrs. X was admitted in the labor ward for delivery on 2/11/2021. So patient went to restroom and she came back near the bedside, and she asked for a sanitary napkin from the assigned nurse. So suddenly the patient had developed giddiness and fell down. So the nurse tried to support and hold the patient, but she couldn't. So patient had a cut injury over the chin. So when we are done for the root cause analysis by using the tool of 5 why analysis, so we'll see one by one what happened. So first, why the patient had self fall. So it's due to unsteady gait and giddiness. So again, we asked for why was unsteady gait and giddiness. So patient was actually self-mobilized himself after SVD without assistance. So actually the post-op education was also given to the patients about we should not supposed to mobilize after 2 hours, but the patient has self-mobilized. So why the patient was self-mobilized without assistance? So the patient's side cot was not kept locked by the assigned staff nurse actually. And why the patient's side cot was not kept locked? So the nurse forgot to lock the side rails. And why the nurse forgot to do the lock? So because the nurse was called to resuscitate the neighbor patients who had cardiac arrest. Actually, one of the patients was gone for cardiac arrest. So all the nurses are given a resuscitation for that particular patient. So that's why it's been, the side was not been locked there. So we had done a CAPA for that one. So what happened? We have made a corrections of patient was safely shifted to bedside and side rails was kept in position. And for the corrective actions, the suture was been over the injury site and the patient was reassessed immediately. So we have warned the staff nurses and not to leave the patients unattended. And for the preventive actions, again, we have given education on prevention of fall education was taught to the particular patients. So here what went good and what went wrong, we'll see one by one. So what went good first? So patient was reassessed immediately by the physician after the event was occurred and the suturing has also done. So Morse falls risk assessment scale was used and the nursing cap plan was also modified. The treatment plan was also modified and reinforcement education was given on the prevention of fall and care of the suture site. So what actually went wrong here? The nurses were not given post-operative instructions clearly about the patient safety. So without any assistance, you should not supposed to get on from the bed. So that instruction was missed during that education part. And the patient was unattended for a short period of time. And the patient's side rails cot was not kept locked by the assigned staff nurse. The concerned nurse was not assigned another nurse to take care of the patient. And patient had a laceration over the chin. So we should follow this strategy, make a clear policies and protocols, maintain the leadership capacity, and give us continuous staff education, and make a healthcare worker skill and efficient involvement in the patient care. And please follow the international patient safety goals. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Ma'am.
Ma'am, please unmute, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Kingsley. And I hope everyone understood why things went wrong and why what brought good things for the patient safety. So I think we can share many, but since the time factor, we are restricting to 3 scenarios. And thank you, Kingsley, and we can share if any queries at the end. Now I would like to invite the second speaker, Kiruba, Senior Nursing Officer from JIPMA, to share the patient care scenarios among children, because she's a pediatric nurse, basically. Welcome you, Kiruba, to share your scenarios. Over to Kiruba.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hello. Can you audible, ma'am? Ma'am, can you audible?
Yes,
You're audible. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Rebecca, ma'am. Thank you, Annie, ma'am. It's a great pleasure to share our opportunity, that clinical experience through this panel. Our clinical reasoning in newborn care after surgery. Next slide, please. The learning outcomes are different clinical reasoning cycle, case presentation, understand the need for clinical reasoning. What is clinical reasoning? Clinical reasoning describes the thinking and decision-making process associated with the clinical practice. What we think and the decision should be associated when we practice in the clinical side. Next slide, please.
Can you share your scenarios straight away?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Case 1, type C tracheoesophageal fistula, preterm 32-4-week male baby admitted on 17/4/2021, birth weight 2.2 kg, presented with the complaints of regurgitation after feeding. He had no signs of drooling, cyanosis, choking, coughing. And when we passed the NG tube, he couldn't pass. So we took the X-ray while passing the NG tube. It was coiled in the esophagus. So diagnosed TEF. They have done the TEF repair. Post-op child was stable on ventilator, extubated the child. Baby was stable. On the 5th day, they have done the CT scan contrast. There was no leak. They started the NG feed 5 ml. EBM, gradually it was increased to 25 ml. Baby was tolerating well. On the 7th day, baby started the oral feed 5 ml. Palatal feed they have started. On the 2nd feed, baby started coughing, choking, and developed a tachypnea. Clinical findings: baby coughing, choking, and developed a tachypnea while feeding. What we did, the nurse immediately stopped the oral feed. She didn't do any suctioning. Immediately she put the NG free drain because to decompress the stomach. She checked the vitals. Baby saturation was signed 97%. Baby position to 40% head and elevation. Immediately she called the surgeon and informed, I stopped the feed. I didn't do suctioning. I put the baby on NG free drain. Maybe I think the baby may develop mild leak in the surgery site. After 4 hours, they have taken the baby, given the gastrovideo injection. The CT scan shows that anastomosis leak in the surgery site. So they have stopped again 1 week later. They stopped started the feed. Baby was taking well. We have given the vaccination and discharged the baby. We should not do, especially in the tracheal esophageal fistula, we put it in the protocol in our notice board. We should not do deep suctioning for the tracheal esophageal repair baby, not pass any NG tube through nasal or oral, should not do extend and flex the neck. The nurse critical thinking was assess the complication. She prevented the complication. The baby was fine. Our ICU team was appreciated her in our ICU. In the next case, second case, the left congenital diaphragmatic hernia, term male baby.
Kripa, you are not audible. She audible to
Hello?
others?
Can you audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am.
You are
Yes,
not
ma'am.
audible.
Yes, we could hear her.
Nurse
Yeah.
critical
yeah.
thinking was assess the complications. Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we could hear her, ma'am.
Can I audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, ma'am. Case 2, left congenital diaphragmatic hernia, term male baby, birth weight 3.26 kg, admitted on 6/6/2021. Antenatally, the baby was detected. So the neonatology team was in the labor room, immediately intubated the child on ventilator. Abdomen was soft and scaphoid. The left lung, lower lung was air entry, very minimal. The X-rays also showed that left congenital diaphragmatic hernia. The baby underwent CDH repair on ventilator, IV fluids, NPO, and free drain. And the baby has ICD because the surgery done through thoracotomy, continuous bladder drainage, IV antibiotic also continues. Vitals are stable after surgery. The next slide. Clinical findings: nil urine output for 3 hours. That baby had nil urine output. The nurse immediately assessed, and she assessed the dehydration level also. She has informed to the resident, baby has nil output for 3 hours, but not looks dehydrated. And then the resident told to give 2 bolus. First 1 bolus 20 ml per kg NS given, but still output was nil. The second dose bolus also given, still then the output was nil. The baby heart rate was increased 170 per minute. Baby was irritable, restless, auscultated the lungs. It crackles present in the lungs. She has informed to the resident, ICU resident. She told to give injection Lasix 1 mg per kg and reduce the IV fluids also, but the output was still nil. After that only they have that when we asked the resident, he told maybe the blood loss more in the intraoperative, but we didn't check in the operative record. We are not palpated the bladder before giving the bolus, not checked the urinary catheter, any king or block anywhere, something misplaced. We did check that. when we auscultated, we know that baby developed a fluid overload. Still then the urine output was nil. So we checked the bladder. After that only, it was hard and distended. So we thought after that the catheter may be blocked. So we changed the catheter immediately. The urine was drained more than 25 ml for the newborns. Here we have delayed the assessment of catheter block. Case 3, ileal atresia baby, term female baby, birth weight 3.5 kg, admitted on 11/9/2021, cried at birth, passed meconium and urine immediate after birth. The next day, baby started bilious vomiting, multiple episodes, abdominal distension present in the upper abdomen, but baby was active and alert. The CT finding shows ileal atresia. Baby underwent surgery, end-to-end ileal anastomosis. Because of that anastomosis, baby kept NPO for 5 days. NG free drain, IV fluids, output, everything was okay, but baby developed a generalized edema. So we have repeated all the investigation. Next slide, please. Here, hypoalbuminemia was diagnosed. They have the albumin 2.7 gram. To start injection albumin. Here, first I have to discuss the failed in assessment. Here, the doctors told to start a human albumin. When he was writing the order, injection human albumin 17 ml over. That time he received another call, he went. So the order was incomplete. While going, he told the nurse to start injection human albumin infusion. She went and checked the order. Here they have written injection human albumin 17 ml, but still she has started the human albumin 17 ml over 1 hour. IV fluids not reduced. She didn't check the right dose, right time, right frequency. But after 20 minutes, she herself realized we never give 17 ml over 1 hour in our ICU. So she went and checked the nurse's doctor's order again. Here she had the mistake. He incomplete the order. So she called and informed. I saw the order, but I started nearly 7 ml gone in. Rest of the 10 ml is remaining there. So she accepted the mistake, monitored vital signs also increased 180, respirator also 60 per minute. So the resident came immediately. They reduced the IV fluids. The rest of the 10 ml given over 5 hours. Baby continuously monitored and reassessed the condition. After 6 hours, the baby was fine. They started a feed, vaccination given, baby discharged fine. Next slide. Why we need clinical reasoning? From this scenario itself, the information gathering, first case, we gathered the right information, we did the right thing. And the second and third cases, we gathered the wrong, in the information gathering, we did the mistake. So problem solving itself, we have taken the wrong decision. Clinical reasoning with the clinical judgment also, we did the mistake. So when we gather the right information, we can help the patient to provide the quality of care. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kiriba. Nice, interesting cases you have presented. And I'm sure everybody who is listening again in childcare to pay attention and more care, and to also not to blindly follow the orders. Okay, thank you. And I would like to invite the next speaker, Professor Kripa Angelin, Nursing Superintendent from MGMC, Mahatma Gandhi University Hospital. She will be dealing with preparation of patients for home care. Thank you and welcome, Kripa.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, all. I'd like to, at the outset, I will thank the ANI executive members for giving us an opportunity and to start the seat in this Puducherry chapter. Thank you so much. I'll straight away go into my task, the task that was ensured to me. An educated patient is an empowered patient. As long as the patient is in the hospital, he feels secure, so because he's having the access of the healthcare. But when he goes home, he's alone and he has to manage himself, whatever it is. So it is very much important that discharge teaching has to be in place so that patient is also safe at home. Discharge teaching is a systematic process for preparing the client to leave the healthcare agency for continuity of care. And the successful discharge teaching is an exchange of information, among the client, present caregivers, and those responsible for care after release. So here we, the nurses, have an important role to put up the discharge teaching properly in place so that patient is free at home without fear. The purpose is to provide information on his or her present health condition, to extend the particulars about the treatment and follow-up schedule, and to provide best continuity of care and prevention of complications. The last is more important. Prevention of complication is very much important, and that is where the discharge teaching plays an important role. Good discharge teaching prevents complication. With this focus, I thought I'll share the case scenario. First case study is based on the self-administration of drug. We had a patient with Mrs. X, 50 years male, who got admitted in the medical ward with complaints of increased fatigue, urination, and emaciated with a weight loss of 10 to 15 kg. Blood investigations were done, among which HbA1c was 7.1 and for fasting was 202 and ppbs was 415. And she was newly diagnosed as diabetes mellitus. So with this, the patient was treated in the ward with the insulin therapy and oral medication for 1 week. And the CBG also was regularly monitored. And after her blood glucose got stabilized, she was discharged, and on discharge medication she was put upon insulin administration at home. The nurse gave discharge teaching, which included self-administration of insulin, diet management, and follow-up care. Here she was a newly diagnosed diabetes mellitus patient, and she was new to this administration of insulin. This patient got readmitted after 35 days to EMS with complaints of giddiness, blurred vision, drowsiness, increased urination, and also she had ecchymosis at the insulin site. The patient underwent investigation, and the CBVG showed alarmingly 495 milligram per deciliter, and her urine also was tested positive for ketone. So patient was emergency managed for treatment of diabetic ketoacidosis. Later on, further communication with the patient and bystanders, it was found that the patient had kept the insulin in room temperature, and the same insulin syringe was used for 1 week without change, and which led to the ecchymosis. So the clinical reasoning for increase in blood glucose in spite of insulin therapy. This question went on, how come this patient came back, landed up in a diabetic ketoacidosis? So what went good and what went wrong? During the discharge, definitely the nurse had done the teaching properly, like self-administration of insulin, oral medication, dosage, route frequency was given, and also she has thought regarding the dietary management and how when the patient has to come for regular follow-up. That was fine. What went wrong? During the teaching of the self-administration of insulin, the nurse did not focus upon telling about the manufacturer's recommendation of storage of insulin where it has to be kept. So the patient has kept it at the room temperature where the potency of the insulin drug been lost. Second, patient was not informed about the warning signs of diabetes mellitus. In a nutshell, to tell the complications of diabetes mellitus should have been told to the patient to watch for hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia and how they have to identify and when they have to seek the medical attention. Thirdly, the patient was not informed regarding change of insulin syringe, how frequently they have to change the insulin syringes, and that's only used for 1 to 2 days, and then it has to be changed because it is a small needle, and once it's blunt, it should not be reused. So this was not informed, which led to the ecchymosis of the patient. So discharge teaching for diabetes mellitus, to be cut in a nutshell, follow the SMART. Self-administration of insulin in your teaching include all those factors, whichever, because we cannot tell all the people are educated. There are some people who do not know the basics of this administration of insulin or hypoglycemia or diabetes. So we have to tell how they have to store, when they have to change the syringe. All these things has to be included. Medication of oral hypoglycemic agents, how they have to take the oral hypoglycemia before food, after food has to be told. Activity, regular monitoring of blood glucose. Even in this patient, if the patient had regularly monitored the blood glucose, he would have reached the operate earlier instead of developing diabetic ketoacidosis. And teaching regarding warning signs of diabetes mellitus and complication has to be told to the patient how to identify and how they have to, when they have to seek the medical attention. Second case study is regarding the care at home, where we had a patient who was 40 years male who came to the emergency department, sustained head injury due to a road traffic accident. On receiving, the patient was unconscious. GCS was 5/15 and ECG, all baseline investigations and rapid assessment was done. Radiological investigations also were done. This patient was put upon intubated and put upon mechanical ventilation, shifted to IC for further management. And there, CT brain revealed that they had a depressed skull fracture, subarachnoid hemorrhage, underwent craniotomy, and follow-up was done in the critical care unit. As the patient was in a neuro rehabilitation phase, tracheostomy was done, and the patient was thought regarding, the bystanders were thought regarding the tracheostomy care at home and discharged after 15 days of hospitalization. This patient, after 14 days of discharge, again visited the neurosurgery OPD with complaints of mild bleeding at the tracheostomy site, thick blood clot, and cough. After patient examination, the tracheostomy tube was found to be dislodged and injury was there in the cannula site. On history from the patient caretaker, why this had happened, it was noted that the tube was dislodged due to vigorous coughing, and the caretaker had repositioned the tracheostomy tube by self, which led to the injury and bleeding. So the clinical reasoning for the tube dislodgement, infection, and the bleeding. What went good and what went wrong? During discharge, the nurse is educated about the tracheostomy care in general, how to do the suctioning, positioning, that the patient has to take incentive spirometry, regarding the diet, protein-rich diet, and medication, what he has to take, regular exercise, physical activity, and few of the rehabilitation techniques. That was fine. But what went wrong? The caretaker was not taught about how to support and cough, how the patient has to support while coughing, and caretaker was not taught about the complication of tracheostomy, that he has to look in for what are the complications can come at home when the patient is going home with a tracheostomy. The caretaker also was not taught about the information regarding what should be observed in the tracheostomy opening, like for watch for bleeding, and if any bleeding occurs, the patient has to come for a immediate seek medical attention immediately, and also do not know the information when to seek medical attention. That's why the bleeding we do not know, they were not able to identify when the active bleeding had started, and there was also clot found in the tube which was blocking the tube. So this, as a mnemonic to put in a nutshell, watch for complications. In case of tracheostomy, what discharge teaching can be done to be more focused is watch for complications frequently in terms of tracheostomy, tube dislodgement, any clots, increased suctioning, mucus plugs, etc. Assess the wound site and appropriate suctioning to prevent all those block of the tracheostomy tube. Third, teach regarding the coughing techniques. How do they have to do the coughing techniques with support so that this sort of dislodging is not happening at home. Care of wound using aseptic technique, because this patient also landed up with a high temperature where the patient have got infected also. So this care of wound aseptic techniques also should have been taught. And we also have to seek help, that is H for help, where the people have to know when they have to take the medical attention whenever necessary. Third case scenario was on oral medication. Again, we had a patient with 47 years old female. She was a known case of diabetes mellitus. Actually, she had come in for a surgical intervention of appendectomy. During hospitalization, her blood sugar was raised, and hence she was added on with tablet metformin 500 milligram along with her regular anti-diabetic treatment. She underwent the surgery, and the post-operative period was uneventful and discharged with the same medications where the doctors advised her to continue with the same order. The discharge summary had glycomet 500 milligram as an order. On hospitalization, she was taking tablet metformin 500 milligram. Both the medications was taken home. After 2 weeks, she came back to the hospital with the complaints of sweating, chillness, palpitation, confusion, and the patient's blood glucose was checked, and it was 50 milligram per DL. That patient was hypoglycemic. On history collection and analysis of what went wrong, the patient stated that she had taken the medications regularly. When we analyzed, it was found that she has taken glycomet 500 milligram and tablet metformin 500 milligram, total 1000 milligram per day daily, which was not which led to this hypoglycemia. What went good? The nurse had given teaching regarding the medication, what was in the discharge summary, and also she has given the teaching regarding the dietary management, physical activity, food care, etc. What went wrong? Discharge medications were not explained properly. When the patient had a bag of medications, the nurse did not check what medications are kept inside, and since it was put up as a continued treatment, she was just focusing only on the discharge summary, and so the trade name of both the drugs was not explained, and which led to the complication of having 2 drugs replication every day. And this patient also was not educated with the warning signs of diabetes, it's hypoglycemia, and how they have to manage for hypoglycemia at home as an emergency measure. The first aid treatment also would have been helped so that Immediately, if the patient has taken up a candy, he would have stabilized his blood sugar to some level, not reaching the hospital with a 50 milligram per deciliter. So what went wrong here is when we are explaining the medications, we have to take the cover, explain, keep up the medication in front of the patient and tell this medication we take for this purpose. And the trade names was synonymous. We should say that this drug should not be repeated. This belongs to the same category or same classification of drug. This was not done, and this is very, very important instruction which the nurse has to tell to the patient. So discharge stitching for a patient with diabetes mellitus, again using alert, appropriate monitoring of blood glucose level. This was also missed. If they had a regular monitoring of CBG as was taught to them, this would have been picked up at an earlier stage. Look for warning signs of diabetes mellitus like hypoglycemia. Ensure all medications are taken out from the cover and explained while the patient is getting discharged. Everything should be told with the name and the purpose, what they have, for what they are taking and when they have to take. If this was done, this error could have been minimized. Reassess the patient, reassess whether the patient has understood the medications properly, explanations properly, and always advise the patient to take the identity of that, telling that they are diabetes along with them. So these three case scenarios has put in place, has been clearly explained that yes, though we tend to forget, discharge stitching is very important for a patient because he's leaving the hospital and going into a different area where his healthcare may not be in a easy access. So he has to be empowered what he has to do and what he has to do, which this empowerment should be given by the nurse only. You are born nurse, you are born with the ability to change someone's life through your compassionate care and teaching the patient community. So don't allow it to go in vain. Only if we are able to teach the patients properly and instill the confidence in them, definitely we can minimize the readmissions of patients with complications. As by the words of the Florence Nightingale, never give nor take an excuse. So whatever domain we are into, it can be in terms of patient care or in terms of patient education. We should never take any excuses or we should not give any excuses. Thereby, we can prevent all errors and improve the quality of nursing care. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kribal Angeline. And you have summarized very well the need for home care. Preparation of patients by nurses need to be optimum. Just don't say only do's and don'ts, but say what to do and why they should do. Okay, this is what is required. And you have concluded very well. And I'm sure to summarize the points from 3 speakers on clinical reasoning, definitely one should possess adequate intellects, adequate clinical knowledge, and apply that, the reasoning, scientific rationale, so that you will see the outcome, whether it's a positive outcomes or negative outcomes. All that what we need is common sense, presence of mind, using our knowledge and refined skills. And moreover, the moral values and ethics, the commitment we have taken for our practice. If everyone follows, definitely the patients will receive a safe patient care and they will be happy. And we can say we are proudly providing quality patient care. So thank you all very much for your patient listening. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Rebecca, ma'am, and panel members. It was really a practical-oriented live session made so simple and applicable by all levels of nurses. Thank you once again. Now it's time to end the session. Let me first, on behalf of Puducherry chapter, thank Tanka madam for giving us an opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
Just want to get to know from the audience if you have anything to share. Do you have any interesting cases that you've handled? Would you like to share something with us so that the others also learn?
You have a time? Time is there permitted?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just take one moment before it's too late. First of all, congratulations, Dr. Rebecca and team.
Thank you.
I was thoroughly enjoying all the case studies because I think that's a very, very powerful way of learning what to do and what not to do. And when you discuss case studies, you kind of remember them for life, that, you know, when you are facing with such situation, you can recollect, because it's like almost like watching a movie. I have experienced something before, so I will not. It's like not a real simulation, but it's kind of a simulation where a particular real study is being discussed with you, and you were very simply you have put what went wrong and what went right. I really enjoyed all the case studies. I must congratulate the team here, and I think we should work more around this. I have an idea. I'll come back to you. And congratulations to all of you. And I really liked sorry, Angeline's, the watch and the smart and the alert. I was when she came to the third one, I was waiting. Now what is she going to tell? What acronym is she going to tell? So I think these are very useful, very useful. And I'm very happy that we have been able to do very influential topics around patient safety, and we are in the 11th episode, and you have really done justice, and also in the given time. I really congratulate you and thank you for keeping up the time. And you have left some time for discussion also. So before it's too late, I thought let me put that on record. And yes, we must ask the audience if they have any case study or if they have any questions to ask the speakers. Please, let's open the forum. And just to make everyone feel comfortable, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording, and just give me 1 second. I will replay that video once. Just give me 1 second, because last time we found that when we stopped the recording, people were more comfortable to discuss. Sometimes recording makes people not very comfortable. So placing on record, thank you. I will request Jay Shankari to close her vote of thanks, and then we will open for discussion. So if they have anything to share. So last time we had a good discussion. Post we close the recording. Yes, Jay Shankari, you can close
Yes.
the session. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Let me first put on behalf of Puducherry chapter, I thank Thanka ma'am and the executives to give us a slot in this November and joining us for this, ma'am. Thank you very much. I thank Mrs. Leena ma'am also, President TN chapter, for initiating and supporting the team throughout in organizing and conducting the panel till the successful completion of this event. Thank you very much, ma'am. I thank Dr. Rebecca ma'am, the founder of Puducherry chapter, and all the panel members, Kingsley Kishore, Kiruba and Kripa Jipma, and all those who are in virtual meeting with us. I could see Captain Usha Banerjee ma'am and Christy ma'am and few other people, all throughout, such eminent people throughout this, and all those who are in this virtual meeting now. Thank you all. Let me extend my gratitude to all the visual audience joining in this Empower Hour for your support and interest shown till the end. Hope all of us will get benefited. Let us share and grow together. Meet you in the next round. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all once
A
again.
moment, just a
Right.
moment. Once again, we would love to invite all the Annie members to our annual general body meeting to be held on 9th December. And this will start at 12:15 p.m. And before that, we will have our 2021's last Empower Hour starting at 11 a.m. And that will be hosted by Captain Dr. Usha Banerjee, and I'll be along with her. So we will wrap it up, the entire 2021, what all we did in Empower Hour. And thank you for all the chapters who have done all that throughout the year. So we will see you next month for sure. For the time being, I will stop sharing, stop recording, sorry.